guys! So today is episode 7 of Ivy and the Inky Butterfly, and this collaboration project was started by Johanna Basford, and she sent out 2-page spreads to a bunch of different colorists, and we are all charged with coloring our 2 pages and then sending them back to her, and then she will bind the book together and make it a finished book. So this is my progress so far. I've been working on the background. So I'm going to keep going, and without any further ado, let's get started. So I've been working in this little sky area here. So let's just keep going there. And as we go, I'm just going to start talking as always, and just chat with you guys and hopefully give you some tips and tricks and just general helpful information. So the last time that we were here, we were working on the sky as well, and I'm sure that everybody saw, sort of my development on how it happened, where there's a watermark issue and there's a lot of trouble with this spot. And so what ended up happening is I disguised the area up here with a big old puffy cloud, and then the variations in the paper sort of didn't matter anymore because I was giving variation on top of that. So a lot of the time what happens is I decide how a drawing is going to go. I thought, oh, okay, this will be a nice clear blue sky with no clouds, and that was how I thought that the direction of the page would go. But then the paper and the circumstances and what had happened sort of, changed my plan. And the thing is like, you can take this one of two ways. You can try to force life around your plan, and so I could have tried really hard to force that sky to be solid blue as I had planned initially, and probably have gotten frustrated, given up, and failed, or not failed, but learned that that is not a good way to approach it. Or I can take what I've been given and say, hey, listen, okay, the paper is not perfect, so I'm not going to be able to achieve the effect I was going for, but I could do this instead. In this case, I decided to add clouds, and then all of a sudden, what may have become a problem initially may end up being a benefit because I like the way these clouds are looking, and so you might end up being happier with the end result when you go with the flow and you adapt to your situation, as opposed to forcing things to happen the way that you plan. So that's just, this kind of advice maybe even applies to life as well. You just kind of gotta go with it sometimes. May not be exactly what you were hoping for, but at the same time, you kind of gotta play the hand you've been dealt, So in this situation, I may not have been super happy with it initially, but now as the drawing develops, I'm happy with the clouds. So you can see here, this shape is sort of looking like a cloud to me already. So I'm just going to accentuate that by simply, sharpening up this edge a little bit, but still keeping it kind of soft because you want it to look fluffy. So here I'll demonstrate how I do a cloud. So I'm in light circular motions, just sort of defining the edge better by going into the sky with a little bit darker of a color. Okay, so then now that this shape is starting to emerge from the drawing, I will continue down the contour of the cloud and continue to do the same thing. So just by darkening up the outside, above the cloud, excuse me, pardon me. So by darkening up above it, like so, I am then creating a lighter colored cloud below it, which then gives us the effect that we're looking for. So, and I can always add more detail to these cloud shapes later. But for right now, I'm keeping them kind of fluffy and amorphous. So the main key is just to make sure to continue your background shapes through the foreground. So you see how this is kind of coming this way. So I want to continue that through. And that will make it feel like it's behind it. If I had just left it, then it would have felt like the vine was having some sort of effect on the background, which would have looked weird. So with any background, the key is to draw through the foreground, meaning kind of try to ignore what's in the foreground when you're drawing the background. I mean, don't ignore it for design purposes, but for the actual shapes themselves, try to draw through it as if the foreground isn't even there. And that will give your backgrounds an effect of continuity. Okay, so you can see how I'm just sort of filling in and evening out the dark areas of this sky here, the darker blue, just giving it a nice solid look. Trying to work in soft light motions now. And evening out colors, especially with colored pencil, I feel like that's like the majority of my time spent colored pencil drawing is just trying to get everything to look the right tone and nice and soft and even. Say, so if you don't like my style of work, where I have lots of soft layers, then you probably shouldn't be watching this, because that's pretty much all I do. I will do some other videos in other sessions where I use paint and other things that are a lot quicker. But if layering and slow processes of colored pencil is not your cup of tea, then do not watch these any further. Just click off, go to some other YouTube channel, anything else. So speaking of that, actually there are a couple of really awesome YouTubers that I found recently. So I'm going to link their profiles down below. People who have similar channels to mine, whose work you might be interested in. So when you're done watching all of my videos, right, because you're going to watch them all eventually, right? I'm just joking. So once you're done watching my videos, you can go over there and check them out if you have more free time. So this big, bright, puffy cloud is turning out pretty nicely. So let me continue on down and finish off this cloud. So I'm going to actually have this cloud kind of go through the light beam at some point. Let's see here. So we'll have him kind of come down and kind of go like through this light beam, right? And what will happen is when you draw through a light beam and you give some definition of some background behind a light beam like this, then it will really give a cool transparent look to that light beam later. So I'm going to use this whole cloud thingy to my benefit. Again, using the serendipity of the moment to allow your drawing to take shape without trying to force it into a certain way. I always feel like this is what brings the element of surprise and delight in drawing, is that a lot of the times what you think is going to happen isn't going to happen, but sometimes it happens a whole lot nicer than the way that you originally planned anyway. So when that happens to you, you will find it is a lovely feeling. And sometimes those happy accidents take a while to learn how to develop. You have to learn how to listen to your own inner artist. And this just takes some experience of trial and error. You have to live it a little bit in order to understand how it works. So what I would do is, if you've never done an experimental session where you just sort of go with the flow, if you like to plan everything out, then what I would suggest is just sitting down and with a blank paper, no coloring or anything else, just blank paper, and try a brand new medium that you've never tried before. And don't try to draw anything or do anything special, just play with a new medium. And you'll discover new things just with that new medium. And then, you know, maybe you can bring that discovery and joy into your coloring pages. Another thing to do is to take you out of your comfort zone. If you plan a lot and you have trouble accessing this happy accident sort of thing, then another way that you can sort of spark that is by sort of pushing yourself in some way. So exploring a new subject matter or a new medium, like I suggested before, that helps. Also, just to sort of like go into a drawing with absolutely no plans, that's always kind of dangerous and fun. Most of the time I like to plan out what I'm doing because I like to get a certain result, and it's easier to plan it most of the time. But sometimes I do go into a drawing completely unsure of what I'm going to do or how it's going to turn out, and that is always, there's a level of adrenaline and fun in that. So if you have a little bit of a daredevil spirit, recommend trying that sometime. Okay, so even though the light beam will have this delineation going through it eventually, I'm going to skip the light beam for now. I'm going to probably do the light beams towards the end of the video. So you're going to have to follow along the whole time to see how the light beams turn out. But the reason why I wait to do a lot of the special effects and the light stuff at the very end is because it gives you sort of a understanding of what the contrast is and how far you have to go with those lighting effects to get a good result. Okay, so now I'm getting into the green kind of area. So now I have to make some decisions. Am I going to fade the green into the blue, which I kind of have a desire to do, or am I going to give more leafy shapes? So as you make decisions like these, here we go. So this is the spot which I'm talking about where there's a lot of blending happening. See, down here I have some leafy shapes poking into the light, and I kind of like that, but maybe we have a lot going on here with that light beam. So maybe I'll just allow the cloud to be the interesting element back there. Maybe even a second cloud coming through here. Okay, so I'm just talking through out loud my mental processes. So what's interesting about colored pencil and drawing in general is because things take so long, I like to think them out ahead And like I was saying before, you know, not everything happens to plan, but I do like to try to plan it out a little bit, so that way hopefully it looks somewhat decent when I'm done with it. So I think that's what I'm going to do is allow this blue to fade into the green and sort of just become sort of like a soft background, because I want the focus to be ivy. I don't want too much going on back here. So I think I'm making the right call and allowing the green and the blue to sort of just blend together and not do all these fun little leafy shapes everywhere. I think I should focus on certain spots. Okay. But these are all judgment calls that you have to make. See, if the look that you're going for is that you want it to look like a jungly forest, and you want it to look hugely lush, and you don't want to see any sky, then my approach is not going to be how you do it. You're going to be adding a lot more leaves than me. And similarly, if you don't like all these crazy leaves everywhere in the background, you could just color it a very simple green and blue and mix the two together and make it really soft and lovely. That might be a nice, simpler approach if all these leaves in the background are intimidating to you. And I can show much more simpler backgrounds coming up in the future. The reason why I'm going all out with this background is because it's for the collaboration project. And I've already seen some of the other colorist collaboration drawings, and they are beautiful. And I want mine to look just as nice, so that way everybody is trying their best. It's going to be a beautiful book. So that's why I'm going all out on this page. Not something I normally do. Sometimes I keep it very simple because that's also a lot of fun. Okay, so we've got blending and color happening here. So let's move back on to this lovely cloud shape. So now that I've gotten the basic outline of it on the top, I want to decide where it's going to be on the bottom. So this is a big fluffier cloud. So I want to come in here. Alright, we're back to finish out this session. So I have been working in the background here in the clouds. So I'm going to continue. I was working over here, I believe. So I'm going to continue putting in cloud shapes right back here and right in here and finish out the bottom. And then as I finish out the bottom, I think I'm going to jump over here and finish out the bottom here. And then the sky will pretty much be finished. Then at that point, the only other background items I need to complete is the area up here where the vines grow. So just follow along with me. I'm going to continue on along without any further ado and keep talking. So here we go. Okay, so we were working down here on the cloud area, right down here. I hope that you can see this okay. So I was working with True Blue, and I don't know if you remember, but my point was rather blunt, so I went ahead and I sharpened it. And you see, I didn't sharpen it to a crazy tip or anything like that. However, I sharpened it enough that I can create a point if I need it But more than anything, I just exposed more of the soft core of the pencil so that I can continue to use it, because the wood was getting to be in the way. I colored it right down to the wood, and that's generally how I do it. Okay, so I'm just darkening up the area below where I think this little cloud shape will be. Also softening up and making more fluffy looking this cloud shape. And then I think there'll be another one right here, because it already kind of looks like I've done that. Again, using whatever I have in the moment to help me out. Why make it tough for yourself, right? So being clever and coming up with things on the spot is not a bad thing. In fact, I think it to be an asset. Okay, so we have a stray mark here. I don't know when that happened, but I'm going to cover it up with a cloud shape or so. So we have some indentations in these clouds, and that helps give it some form. So you can just follow along and see how I do it. And feel free to copy. As always, when you copy, it would be awesome if you could give me credit. If you would link to this video, that would be cool, so that other people can find it and try it out as well. So what we've got here is a lot of little cloud shapes at the bottom of the page, which I kind of like. It kind of makes it feel like it's off in the distance a little bit. So you can see how I just develop the shape slowly over time, and mostly going sort of at random. I can't say a lot of the times it's predetermined where my clouds will be, but the way I go is based on the feel and the moment and what the paper and the drawing is already telling me. And then I also do this thing where I just kind of try and vary big poofy shapes and small little shapes. And this variation, knowledge of this comes from just drawing a lot of clouds from life. So what I would do is I would go out usually with chalk pastel. And I like it because it's almost like painting, because it's pure pigment, really. So I would go out with chalk pastel and go out into a national park or some kind of community park and sit and draw clouds. So this is a useful exercise if you have trouble drawing clouds. You can use a photograph to help you and copy what you see. That's useful, but I love drawing from life. I feel like it enables me to then draw from memory and from my head a lot better, because I sat and experienced the movement and shape of the clouds and how they alter over time. So that experience was useful in teaching me how clouds form and how their shapes develop. And I think it shows in my work that I understand the general basics of cloud form. So if you want to get that same sort of knowledge, my recommendation is to go out, grab a cheap set. I think I got them for like $12 at a craft store. Cheap set of chalk pastels, and go ahead and draw from life. This is the best way to learn, in my opinion, drawing from life. That's how I learned most of what I know now. Okay, so I'm just fine-tuning the area around this sunbeam. Okay, this big puffy cloud, I love it. But let's knock it back a little in space, and the way you do that is just by darkening it up a little bit. Not so dark as the sky, because then you'll lose the cloud completely, but rather just fading it out a little so that it's not so contrasty. And do it on both sides of the beam, so that way the beam feels like it's slicing through that background. And this darker color will give more contrast to allow this smoke to really pop out, while at the same time pushing the cloud back in space. Okay, so I like the way that that's turning out. So I have this other cloud shape back here, so I'm going to just define it a little bit better. And then I think I will hop over to the other page. So stick around for that session. And I said I might cut this short, but I am on a roll. So I might actually make this a long session and try and get more of it done for you. So that way we can move on to the foreground soon, because I'm sure you're dying to know when that's going to start. And I can't really tell you, I'm letting the page dictate how many episodes this takes. I don't even really know. When I asked Johanna's team if there was a deadline, they said no. So I thought, while I should get started right away, which I have, that I would take my time and do a nice job. So that way, when I send it in, I'm happy about it. Alright, so now we're starting to get into the greens, so I'm just sort of gently mixing in this true blue in with that peacock green that I laid down a long time ago. I don't know if you remember that episode, that was a while back. And if you followed me from the beginning, then that is amazing. Thank you so much. I hope that this series has been helpful in any kind of way. My goal is just to show you my entire process. This is the real me. This is me just, I'm sitting here at my desk, just doodling around. This is how I do just about every one of my pages. And so I hope it's helpful. I know that this isn't a flashy video series where I've edited out, excuse me, see, I've got a cold and I haven't edited out all the stupid stuff, I haven't really edited anything, really. I just threw them together and put it on YouTube. But I don't have a lot of free time. I thought it would be better to give you guys something than nothing. But I also feel that this is more authentic and genuine than speeding it up and showing you a glossy version, I guess, of what I do. There's really no magic to it. I know that people think that I'm some wizard. I'm not. Really, it's just all just patience and work. Okay, so I have this light beam. Alright. So I'm getting rather happy with the background. So there's what we have so far. I think I just want to touch up in this one spot here with the bumblebee. Just make it a little bit darker. Just that way when I do the bumblebee, it kind of stands out more. The areas where you want more focus, you can put more contrast, like I'm doing here. And so I'm leaving the white of the beam white, but just adding darkness to this spot. And then later on when I add the bumblebee's colors, this blue will contrast very nicely with the orangey yellow that I'm going to use. And it's almost a direct complementary color, so this will really vibrate very nicely with the bumblebee, with the other colors. So this is a really nice way to get a more vibrant effect without laying a whole lot of color down, is simply knowing what your complements are and using the opposite. So if a color theory and an advanced color kind of class type thing would be interesting to you, if you want to learn more about color theory and how I use colors, then let me know in the comments below. You know, just say like I vote for a color class or something, and then I will make sure to do that video. If nobody seems interested, then I won't bother, because it's kind of involved. Kind of a pain in the butt really to explain, but if that's something that you struggle with and you don't know what I'm talking about when I say complementary colors, then let me know, because that's something that I can definitely explain better. And I don't want to leave you guys in the dark either. Okay, you can always search for it too on Google. I'm sure that there's many other videos, not from me, that have already been produced, but I'm sure. I haven't checked, so I'm not 100% sure, but okay, so I just like that effect with the bumblebee. It's just a little bit darker, and let's put these two pages together and see. Oh, it's upside down. Okay, so let's see what we need to do. And I'm almost certain it needs to be, yep, so the top center of the spread, this area in here, that's really kind of been neglected, and that's because, oh wait, I should actually do this spot first, because we've got clouds here, so I should carry on some clouds through here. So let's actually do that. So what I'm going to do, before I do the viney spot, let's just finish up. So here we've got these clouds, and I'm just going to put them next to it as a reference so you can see what I'm looking at. And that will just help me, again, carry on the same values and the same kind of colors. Again, using my true blue, a soft, soft touch, and just coming in with a cloud shape of some sort. So this will be like the bottom of a cloud. So now I'm drawing the sky basically. Alright, so this is good. I'm making these clouds very soft. And they do have quite a lot of blue in them. But that's because these clouds also have a lot of blue in them. And I'm trying to match now the other sides that way. I get a nice even look. So we have some sky happening there. Let's bring the bottom of this cloud up a little, make it more fluffy looking.